Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Realm of Unknown. I'm your host Shane. If you guys are listening to this, the date that it is uploaded, we are having dual uploads this week. So if you are listening to this and have not checked out the last episode on the Van Sant covered bridge here in PA, then be sure to go and check that out. Today is going to be a bit more of, or I should say this episode is going to be a bit more of a note-based one. This is the poll winner from last month's Patreon poll, and the winner, based off the title, is Deja Vu. It was surrounding weird phenomena that we are still not fully explained, and I sort of want to keep a theme going. So if you guys do want to check out the new poll that is currently over on Patreon, it is public right now. You can do so. The theme is monsters, as June is going to be Monster Month. And if you do want to participate, you can go over to Realm of Unknown at Patreon. Or if you just want to check out updates, you can go over to Twitter and Instagram. I am going to be running a quick little promo for you guys before the episode gets into the full. So sit back and enjoy that, and I will be back with you guys in just a moment.
Hey everyone, my name's Drew, and I'm the host of the Ghost Train Podcast. The podcast that dives right into the creepy and freaky world of the paranormal. Join me every Tuesday as I take you on a spooky and fun ride full of scary ghost stories. I use my unique sense of humor and ability to laugh in terrifying situations to mask my fear of the stories being told. I'm always asking questions and trying to find answers to the unexplainable. Listen if you dare, and once you do, good luck sleeping tonight.
Okie doke, so Deja Vu. What is Deja Vu exactly? We've pretty much all experienced it before in some way or another. I mean, the translation literally means already have seen. So at its core, it really relates to anyone, and it could possibly happen to you, it could possibly happen to me, yada yada yada. But there are deviations when it comes to Deja Vu experiences. Either seeing it as a type of, prophetic sight or precognition in some way, while the other half of the discussion, I should say, falls within the scientific realm, and with research leaning towards the idea that this strange event could be caused by memory recollections, issues with our brains, or possibly being some sort of issue with mental illness that could be passed down. In fact, we are going to be discussing these ideas, particularly with the paranormal camp first, because it's a bit shorter. Most of what we'll be talking about is going to fall under the scientific umbrella. As like many unexplained phenomena, there are a lot of theories and explanations that could possibly, solve this. I'm not going to talk about all of them. I'm going to talk about a few. So I am going to, again, start with the paranormal, and then we'll go into the scientific, and then at the very end, I guess you guys will have a better, standing point for what you might possibly experience if you've ever had deja vu yourself. So the paranormal, again, with the more supernatural side of the argument, deja vu is closely linked to other mental phenomena such as precognition, prophecy, or future sight. It can oftentimes be attributed to the belief to have some sort of higher insight or connection to energies unseen, or possibly a link to some higher power. This could, be an example such as like the oracles of ancient times. The distinction between all of these, however, is that deja vu is clearly the sensation of reliving or revisiting a moment in time, whereas most of these alleged abilities are associated with the glimpsing of the future in some way. Some believe that perhaps these future moments are witnessed unknowingly by the individual, such as in dreams, which we will talk about later on. So that in turn, once the event occurs, people get the deja vu moment. But like most of the arguments relating to deja vu, they're just theories. There isn't really much solid proof to really support any of these claims. Now, some people think that maybe it's like parallel universes when it comes to this sort of thing, or you're glimpsing the reality of someone else before it even happens. It's all very, grabbing at straws, but it should be noted, I should say, that this sort of belief and practice has been very prevalent throughout the years and the centuries, pretty much in all types of civilizations on Earth. So regardless of the validity of the claims relating to the more, supernatural side of things, it should be warranted that this sort of history should have some respect and consideration when deciding it. Because honestly, we don't know. But the scientific side, and honestly I think the more interesting one because of how sort of bizarre it can sort of range, is what we're going to talk about now. And there are sort of two types of deja vu that are at least recognized throughout the scientific community. The first being pathological deja vu, which is usually associated with epilepsy in some way. It is also the one that can sometimes last for long durations or have very high frequency to it. Pathological deja vu is also often associated with hallucinations and other symptoms that could possibly link it to some sort of neurological illness or disorder that the person might not even know about. And the second type of deja vu within the scientific community is non-pathological types, which is commonly associated with healthier people, and this accounts for the larger amount of experiences with deja vu. Those with increased experiences within this sort of bubble of the discussion can oftentimes be attributed to people who travel a lot or watch movies, people who have a lot more of experiences and memories to draw from. And it also should be noted that some studies find that people who are compromised in some sort of way in their life, either being under a lot of stress or overworked or having some sort of loss, it can also sort of spark more deja vu moments, and that's something that could be discussed later while we're going through this, but it's just something I want to mention early on. In the last little quick little snippet when it comes to non-pathological types, it is noted that the experiences in frequency do decrease along with age. Now, the types of explanations that are out there, they range a lot, and when it comes to deja vu, more or less the common ones, or I should say the most agreed upon ones, are the ones that we're going to talk about. The first being temporal lobe epilepsy, which I mentioned early on for the pathological types. This has it that an electrical discharge occurs within the brain, and that creates the sensation that an event or experience currently happening to the person has happened in the past. This phenomena is also tested against people who have mental disorders. They sort of had a side test going on to attribute it to other illnesses that we were aware of, such as anxiety, DID being dissociated identity disorder, or schizophrenia. All sort of things that spark the brain. You sort of have a different chemistry mix up. However, when it comes to these different studies and tests to link into the epileptic discharge, there are no connections, and that sort of study got tossed out of the way. So mental illness isn't really something that is entirely founded on when it comes to this sort of stuff, or at least in these particular studies. Obviously, there's so many out there that it's really hard to determine every specific, but at least tests were done with these particular ones, and the epileptic discharge that we mentioned doesn't seem to have a relation to how these may work. The next possibility is pharmaceuticals. Certain drugs also seem to have the possibility to increase the chance of deja vu occurring with whoever is currently using them. Again, sparking the sensation that an event had currently happened is happening again. Although it should be mentioned that these are extremely situational events, sometimes it even involves the combination of two or more particular drugs in order to have this phenomena occur in this particular way. So it's not really any way to steadily report on this or have a wide-scale study or survey, because the combination and potential outbreak with these sort of things is so weird and strange that you can't really narrow it down. There are isolated accounts of this sort of thing happening, so it is a possibility, and that's hence why it's one of the explanations. It's one of the weaker ones, but it's still something that has happened, so it could happen. Next is the split perception explanation. Deja vu may happen if a person experiences the current sensation twice in a row. This happens when the first experience is rather minimal, short, and not at all significant. Immediately after this first experience, however, the second one happens with similar sensations that our brain then connects to the first one. So imagine making dinner and the smell of garlic momentarily comes to your mind while making it. Then a week later, the smell of garlic while cooking sparks the thought and the pattern from the first time. This sort of mix up in our brain is sort of what they're trying to get at. So being in a similar setting, having similar actions, having similar stimulants such as smell, sight, hearing, or touch may possibly spark an experience that is close to the original one, but not all together there. There's just something that sparks you into thinking because the original experience was brief and not at all something that imprinted heavily into your mind. Now, the memory-based explanation. So research has associated deja vu experiences with good memory functions in our brains. Recognition memory is the aspect of our mind that enables people to realize the event and activity that they have experienced has happened in a prior sense. So this is you consciously remembering an event that has happened before. Basically, this explanation for deja vu is that someone has their recognition memory triggered by a certain situation that they find themselves in, regardless of whether or not they have actually experienced it before, thus linking it to the actual event and creating a new core memory. This is very similar to the last explanation that we gave. However, this is more, I guess, structured, and this is like an actual event has happened rather than just a stimulant that is reminding you of a different stimulant. And finally, we have the dream-based explanation. Again, we mentioned before that in the paranormal sense, people have associated it with dreams, and the idea of some sort of precognition or some sort of future sight happening within a dream then translating to reality is something that people think when it comes to deja vu, but on the scientific side of things, dreams are also something that have been considered. So dreams have also been thrown into the mix when it comes to these explanations, as people having deja vu experiences that have been duplicated in some form within a dream has also been noted as a thing. So in fact, there was actually a sort of survey / trial report done by Brown back in 2004, where 20% of the recipients of the survey did report that their deja vu experiences were from dreams that they could consciously remember, while 40% of the recipients reported that their own experiences came from both dreams and reality. So the idea that you had a dream that was memorable and that you could consciously think back onto having some relation to an event that occurs in reality later on. So it's sort of building a new memory off of a false reality in a sense, and thus giving you a deja vu moment for an event that you know didn't happen, but in a dream it did. Additionally, people have experienced deja vu because some elements of their remembered dreams were experienced in reality, like I just mentioned, which, to be honest, I think is a really good explanation for this sort of stuff. Personally, if I've ever had deja vu, I think this is likely the most reasonable explanation. If you have wild dreams, if you have very lucid, very vivid dreams, and you do remember them later on, especially if they're like highly recurring, the idea that something very, very similar to them happening in real life, or not even having to be so similar, just something vague, like when you walk into a store or how you made like food that one time, being able to link that to a dream that possibly happened makes a lot of sense, because deja vu is the idea that this has happened, but you can't remember it happening. So if it happened in a dream, that memory is there, but at the same time, you never actually experienced it. So in turn, the deja vu sort of kicks in. Finally, within the dream explanation, people may possibly be experiencing deja vu within a dream or a dreamlike state. This seems to be a deviation of its own, sort of being like a weird daydream type explanation. You're not really processing everything correctly. I don't really know how this sort of thing links together. It seems to be like the weaker ones of the dream explanations, because there's no real like data on it, but it is something that has been noted sometimes, especially within some of the studies. So it's something that was mentioned, and I'm just throwing in there because we're talking about dreams. And I can sort of see this if you're like just really out of it, or you're just not really sure what's going on. If you have lack of sleep, things can sort of be blurred in a sense. So I can sort of see that being a possibility, so I can kind of get on that boat a bit. But to me personally, I think the second note within the dreams, having some sort of spark to a dream that you had before, I think personally is probably the strongest explanation for this sort of stuff. And if I have ever had it, I think probably is likely what was a good explanation for, I should say. And that's going to wrap it up. Deja vu is something that has a very long history to it, and I just wanted to really talk about the explanations to it, because going through histories on it is going to take forever, and it's going to be this long, arduous thing that sort of breaks off and deviates in all these different avenues that really have no real structure to them. So I figured just talking about some of the top explanations is probably the best course of action when it comes to an episode relating to it. And again, this was a Patreon poll winner for the month of May. And if you do want to take part in the poll for June, again, June being Monster Month, you can do so by going over to patreon.com/Realm of Unknown and participating. It is currently open and eventually will become locked for patrons only. I do want to mention too that a lot of new content is being uploaded over on the Patreon, particularly EVP sessions and audio recordings from an investigation at Laurel Hill Cemetery here in Philadelphia. So if you do want to check those out, those are also currently public. New longer length and full length sessions are going to be locked behind the patron tiers, however. And those tiers are $1, $3, and $5. If you guys do want to check that out and support the podcast, you could do so over there. You have monthly polls, as well as bonus content and behind-the-scene things, as well as a bonus episode every month if you are a supporter. And if you aren't able to support financially, leaving a review over on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts would be greatly appreciated. Definitely like to hear some feedback and reviews if you guys do have it. Feedback is always great, especially if it is constructive in some form or another. And if you do want to stay up to date on the podcast, you could do so over at Twitter and Instagram at Realm of Unknown. I hope you guys did enjoy this week's episode, this being Deja Vu, as well as the other upload from today being the Van Sant covered bridge. And again, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope to see you guys next week with 2 possibly new episodes again. But until then, remember to stay spooky.